Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever looked at a car and thought, you know what, I could probably build one myself if I had enough audacity and maybe a little bit of questionable judgment? Well, in 1955, one Frenchman did exactly that. Meet the Grataloop. Not a brand, not a model, just a single, hand-built, three-wheeled microcar created by one man, a dream, and probably a surplus of red wine. Imagine post-war France, Citroëns rolling off assembly lines, Messerschmitts being polished by diligent owners, and here comes Monsieur Grataloop in his little shed, surrounded by chickens and scraps of metal, saying, "I've got motorcycle parts and time, let's make magic." Monsieur Grataloop wasn't trying to start an automaker. He didn't have a factory, a team, or a venture capital pitch deck. All he wanted was a way to get around. And rather than buying a small, mass-produced microcar like a Messerschmitt or Isetta, he thought, why not combine a British Villiers engine, a French gearbox, some chains, and leather belts, and see what happens? The result was the Grataloop, a fully functional daily driver, a one-off marvel of ingenuity that could climb hills, navigate narrow village streets, and probably terrify the occasional nun on market day. Somehow, it even met French road regulations and carried a proper license plate from Department 64 in the Pyrenees Atlantics, which is essentially the French state saying, yeah, that's a car. The Grataloop was powered by a 247cc Villiers M-Coke I single-cylinder two-stroke air-cooled engine, producing about 7.5 horsepower. To put that in perspective, it had roughly the power of a lawnmower that had just downed an espresso. This little engine was mounted beside the driver, not in the back or front, beside. So if you were riding shotgun, you weren't sitting next to a person. You were bonding with a smoking, vibrating, oil-leaking mechanical companion. Power went to the single rear wheel through a 3-speed manual gearbox, linked by chains that were, let's be honest, more scrap heap chic than high-tech engineering. The clutch, not a standard friction disc. No, Monsieur Grataloop improvised with 3 lever belts. Because when life gives you scrap, you don't make lemonade, you make a transmission. Even starting the engine was a spectacle. While most Villiers engines relied on foot kicking, Grataloop rigged an electric starter connected by a literal leather strap. You pressed a button, the belt spun, and if the stars aligned, the engine sputtered to life like a very sleepy accordion. The chassis was handmade from steel tubing or angle iron, with a tadpole wheel layout, 2 wheels up front, 1 in the back, leaf spring suspension, and mechanical drum brakes, possibly borrowed from a bicycle or a small motorcycle. It may not have had crash tests, but it stopped eventually, which is arguably the most important thing. Measuring just 8 feet long and 52 inches wide, weighing a mere 175 kilograms, the Grataloop was compact enough to park in your hallway if you had clearance and enough courage. Inside, it was Spartan. A single seat, a steering wheel, a tined windshield, and a fabric roof for rain or dramatic flare. Technically a 2-seater, realistically a 1-seater plus a very vocal engine. Top speed? About 45 miles per hour, though with wind in your back and a downhill slope, some optimistic sources claim 52. Visually, the Grataloop looked like a frog had a love affair with a roadster. Rounded nose, flared front fenders, and a tail that looked like it was borrowed from a pedal car. The green paint was cheerful, the proportions were functional, and the whole thing radiated personality. The wide front track improved cornering, the high ride height prevented it from getting stuck on every cobblestone, and the oddly placed engine centralized mass, likely improving handling, or at least morning adrenaline. Compared to other microcars of the 1950s, the Grataloop didn't compete on speed or luxury. It competed on sheer originality. While BMW Isettas and Messerschmitts rolled off production lines by the thousands, this car was a one-man protest against conformity. Production? 1. Surviving today? 1. Priceless and utterly unmarketable, a unicorn among quirky goats. In 2013, it sold at auction for $34,500, roughly $45,000 today, proving that creativity and stubbornness have a market, even if it's niche. Now it resides in the Lane Motor Museum in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting proudly among the world's most unusual vehicles. The Grataloop didn't change the world, but it proved that with enough determination, a wrench, and a touch of madness, one person could create something wonderfully weird, practical, and completely their own. So, next time you see a microcar, remember, the Grataloop wasn't built for fame or fortune. It was built for adventure, for problem solving, and maybe just for the sheer joy of saying, I made a car, and yes, it runs. And that, my friends, is automotive magic. Never underestimate a Frenchman with a wrench, some scrap metal, and zero plans to follow convention.